Okay, part two. So taking the initiative to try is different for me, and really just trying to honor that baby steps are a lot more than I was doing before. I think I read a quote at some point about it doesn't matter how slowly you're going so long as you continue to move forward. And I've been trying to be okay with that, and understand that I have made like a significant amount of progress since I was admitted. My treatment team has been really awesome in that they've seen me through a lot through a long period of time, and so they see the progress, and they also don't get frustrated or angry with me for it being sort of slower. Actually, they are constantly reassuring me that it kind of makes sense, and that my favorite RPA, her name's Megan, RPA is like resident patient assistant, so like a counselor. She, a few weeks ago or a month or so ago, we sat up talking at night, and she said something. She was like, "Oh, Sophia, I wish I could, if I had a magic wand." And I asked her, I was frustrated, and I was like, why is it so hard for me? Why, for some people, and I'm not saying that it's like harder for me than it is for everyone else. I'm not like the worst case in the world, but I've been pretty sick. And she said, I said, why is it so hard for me? I don't understand how some people in treatment don't understand that they can still do behaviors. It's almost like once they get to this safe place or whatever, they don't even consider using behaviors. And I remember probably in my first treatment, a long time ago, when I was a kid, really, maybe feeling sort of similarly, although I think I was also using behaviors that I wasn't really aware of at the time, but I was saying that I wished it were like that for me, that I could just not even register that it was a possibility and therefore have more time without it. And she said something about, I think it has a lot to do with severity and how long you've been dealing with it. She said she really thought that contributed to things, and that's not... There's a girl I'm with at the place now who... Sorry. It's her first time in treatment, and there are a lot of those people actually right now who it's their first time, which is kind of refreshing. And I know that that's helpful for them, but she asked me something, and I was trying to be encouraging, and I did say, I don't think it's any less hard necessarily for somebody who's had their eating disorder for a year versus 15 years in the direct sense, like in the immediate sense, but I do think that it's more likely for the person to be able to stick with their recovery and to make behavioral shifts after the initial really difficult part of it. That's not necessarily true for everyone, but I do feel like there's difference. And I felt like I knew in that situation, talking with her, that she wasn't going to feel invalidated, because she really genuinely seemed concerned about not being able to get back to the life that she had a year ago. And it was, for her, she said something, she was like, I can still see it. I can still see and remember what it felt like to have that life without this, and feel confident and whatever. And I know, I mean, that really makes me feel encouraged for her. I know that one of the challenges for me, on the other hand, and this doesn't make it better or worse, it just means, it's going to be hard, is that I can't remember a time when I didn't have this going on. So, anyway, me journal that I tried to show you. Let's see. Yeah, it's not going to work with the light. I'm kind of scattered, but I try to write gratitude lists every so often, and accomplishments. And I took some notes on Jen Friedman's interrupting impulsivity video, and like some of the suggestions. And also Rachel, I can't remember what your full thing is, but you're on We Are Freedom Fighters. wrote down some of your stuff, as well as I think Ariel's stuff for Recovery Toolbox. So yeah. I like the idea of surrounding yourself with as much positivity as possible. For me, right now, things like I am beautiful or I can do this, maybe I can do this, but things that are like simple and positive don't, it's almost like it's painful for something to be too positive because it feels like a little bit insulting or something, which I know sounds kind of weird, but I think I'm still really thawing and coming out of a pretty traumatic relapse, and I still feel really wounded, so I have to be more subtle and careful with myself and the things that I surround myself with, things that maybe feel a little bit more believable. But I do like the idea of like the Post-its, or even for me, what I notice helps me sometimes is looking, because this is one thing I've dealt with, is that I've gone above my set point, and that happens every time because I do tend to have problems with overeating, and then I've fucked up my metabolism and all of that stuff. So, but looking at photos of myself from the time that I did stay in recovery and my body actually settled out. I never believed that could happen for me, but it did that one time. And so photos I like of myself, and I know that the ultimate goal is to not have any like real worth thing based on how you look, but it does help me feel more reassured that it'll be okay for me. So that's one thing. Caroline Rothstein, I watched your video about finding the root of the eating disorder and your ideas of what may have contributed to the development of yours. And you asked the question, what is it that predates the eating disorder? And I thought that was really interesting. And some of the things that I thought of for myself were feeling, since I was really young, like remembering things that indicate even then that I lacked a sense of self. And I can talk a little bit more about that another time. But isolation. I'm an only child. My parents didn't have many friends. I did have some cousins I was close with. So that was really nice. But I was lonely, and I did very poorly socially and in school. I was bullied. And I had an increasingly flattened sense of self-esteem. There was also some pretty serious stuff happening at home. My mom kind of had a mental breakdown when I was younger, and it's a long story, but she was drinking, and she was, that's its own thing. But when I consider those things, I notice something in myself shift back from it, like it doesn't want to go there. It's hard for me to even focus or feel present when I think about it, so I really have to sit calmly and let myself think about it a little bit, not in a dwelly sort of way, not in a way that's unproductive, but also not in a way that has to be productive either. It's more like connecting myself to that person. To make a third video.